Hi guys, it's Emma AITA, your favorite AI slop tuber. Before we jump into today's video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks so much for your support. Now, let's get right into the video. AITA for refusing to lend my sister money even though she's about to lose her house. I, 32 female, have always had a strained relationship with my younger sister, Kayla, 29 female. Growing up, Kayla was the golden child of our family. Our parents doted on her, made excuses for her behavior, and constantly bailed her out of every mess she got herself into. Meanwhile, I was the responsible one. I got straight A's, paid for my own college through scholarships and part-time jobs, and have never asked for a cent from my parents since I moved out at 18. Kayla, on the other hand, floated through life on a cushion of second chances. She barely passed high school, dropped out of college twice, and spent her 20s living at home, occasionally working retail jobs, but never saving a dime. When I got married 4 years ago, I bought a modest home with my husband, Marcus. We both work full-time jobs. He's an engineer, and I work in marketing. And we've been careful with our finances. No kids yet, but we're trying. In contrast, Kayla had a whirlwind romance with a guy she met at a music festival, married him within 6 months, and they bought a house they couldn't afford. Her husband, Connor, is a part-time musician who hasn't held a steady job in years. They bought a 4-bedroom house in a nicer neighborhood than ours, claiming they wanted space for when the band takes off and kids someday. The down payment came mostly from our parents, and I know for a fact they co-signed on the mortgage. For the past 3 years, I've watched from a distance as Kayla and Connor lived way beyond their means, buying new furniture, going on weekend trips, and constantly posting photos of their blessed life. Meanwhile, my parents continued to bail them out, loaning them money every few months. I kept quiet. I didn't judge, at least not aloud. I focused on my own life, my marriage, and my career. That changed 2 months ago when my mom called me in tears. Kayla and Connor were months behind on their mortgage and were in danger of foreclosure. My parents had already maxed out a credit card helping them with previous payments and couldn't keep floating them. My mom begged me to talk to Kayla to see if I could help. I didn't want to get involved, but guilt got the better of me. I called Kayla. She answered like nothing was wrong, which infuriated me. I had to bring up the house myself. And even then, she acted like it was just a temporary cash flow problem. She eventually admitted they were in deep trouble. Their savings were gone, Connor hadn't booked any paid gigs in over a year, and she'd been out of work since quitting her retail job 6 months earlier to figure things out. I was shocked by her nonchalance. She didn't even sound panicked, just annoyed that things weren't working out how she wanted. Then she said it. "We were hoping you and Marcus could help. Just a short-term loan, like $15,000. That's nothing for you guys, right?" I almost dropped the phone. That was not a small amount of money. And the way she said it, as if it were obvious we would help, made me feel like I was being emotionally blackmailed. I told her I'd talk to Marcus, but I was pretty sure we couldn't do it. That didn't go over well. She got defensive immediately, accusing me of being selfish, of turning my back on family. "You've always looked down on me," she said, "and now you get to feel superior by letting us drown." I ended the call before I said something I'd regret. Marcus was livid. He didn't want to lend them a dime, and honestly, neither did I. We've worked too hard to build what we have. We have our own bills, our own mortgage, and fertility treatments we're trying to save for. But then my parents called again, this time begging us outright to help just this once. They promised we'd get paid back and said they would match whatever we gave. They even hinted that if we didn't help, Kayla might have to move in with them, which of course they couldn't handle. I said no, flat out. I told them I love Kayla, but I'm not financially responsible for her bad choices. That we all knew this was coming. That she has never shown any willingness to change. And that giving her a lifeline now would just delay the inevitable. My parents were heartbroken. My mom cried and said she thought I was better than this. Now Kayla isn't speaking to me. She's posted vague, passive-aggressive things on social media about people who act like family but aren't, and I've gotten nasty texts from a couple of her friends. Even one of my aunts called to say she was disappointed in me. But I'm standing firm. Still, the guilt is eating me alive. Did I abandon my sister? Am I punishing her for a lifetime of bad choices instead of offering compassion when she finally needs it? The fallout from my refusal hit me harder than I expected. I thought I was braced for the backlash, but the sheer scale of it shook me. Within days, I became the villain in my extended family's group chats. One cousin sent me a wall of text explaining how not everyone starts with the same privileges and some people just need time to figure life out. Another distant aunt, who hadn't spoken to me in years, commented on one of my Facebook photos with a cryptic, "Hope your stone heart keeps you warm at night." I wish I were exaggerating. What made it worse was the silence from my parents. I thought maybe, after the initial emotional outburst, they'd come around and see that my decision wasn't cruel. It was just logical. But they didn't. My mom stopped calling. My dad, who rarely gets involved in emotional stuff, sent me a short email that read, "We're disappointed, but it's your choice." That was it. No phone call, no conversation, just silence. Meanwhile, Kayla doubled down on her online campaign to paint me as a monster. She never mentioned me by name, but anyone who knew us could read between the lines. It's always the ones closest to you who betray you the deepest. Funny how people preach family values until it costs them a dime. The comments under her posts were full of sympathy and validation, which made it harder to ignore. Friends and even some old high school acquaintances chimed in with messages like, "Stay strong, girl, and you deserve better than fake family." I didn't respond. I couldn't. Marcus stood by me the entire time, which helped more than I can say. He even offered to write an email to my parents, explaining our position, but I asked him not to. I didn't want this to become a proxy war between families. Still, I could tell he was angry. Not just at Kayla, but at how my parents were treating me. "You've bent over backward for them your whole life," he said one night. "You helped pay their medical bills last year when Kayla couldn't be bothered. And now they're acting like you're the problem?" He had a point, but that didn't make it feel any better. Then something unexpected happened. A mutual friend of Kayla's and mine, Jenny, reached out privately. Jenny and I hadn't talked much in years, but we were close in college, and she had remained in touch with Kayla sporadically. She messaged me late one night saying, "Hey, I don't want to get in the middle of anything, but you should know something." What she told me changed everything. Apparently, Kayla and Connor had refinanced their mortgage over a year ago to pull out equity from the house. They used the money not to pay off debt or make responsible financial moves, but to fund a 6-month sabbatical in Costa Rica. I had seen the photos at the time, surfboards, yoga retreats, endless sunsets, but I had assumed it was some kind of sponsored influencer thing or a trip they'd saved up for. Nope. They had literally borrowed against their house to fund a vacation. Jenny said she only found out because Kayla had drunkenly bragged about it one night. We figured we'd flip the energy when we got back, make some art, write a book, maybe start a podcast. And that was before they stopped making payments altogether. I was stunned. My first reaction was white-hot anger. How dare they try to guilt me into bailing them out after that? But underneath the anger was something else, a deep, weary sense of validation. I had known, somewhere deep down, that their problems weren't just bad luck, but hearing the full extent of their recklessness made everything click into place. The house wasn't slipping away from them because life had been cruel. They had torched it themselves, and now they wanted someone else to rescue them from the ashes. I didn't confront Kayla with this information. Honestly, I didn't think it would do any good. She'd either deny it, spin it, or double down on her victim narrative. Instead, I took a step back. I muted her social media accounts, removed myself from the extended family group chat, and sent one final message to my parents. I wrote, "I love you both, but I need space. I won't be guilted for choosing not to subsidize a lifestyle built on irresponsibility. I understand this is painful, and I'm not asking you to choose sides, but I'm asking you to respect my boundary. I hope one day we can reconnect from a healthier place." I didn't hear back. Days turned into weeks. Around this time, my anxiety peaked. I started having trouble sleeping. I kept replaying old memories. Christmas mornings where I gave up the bigger gifts so Kayla could have what she wanted. College applications I helped her with only to watch her ignore the deadlines. Times I bailed her out of small messes, told her things would get better, tried to be the big sister she needed. Had all of that been for nothing? It was Marcus who reminded me why I'd drawn the line. "You've always shown up," he said. "You've done more than most people would. And when you finally said no, you became the bad guy. Not because you were wrong, but because you stopped playing the role they assigned you." That hit me hard. It was the first time I realized that my role in this family had never been about mutual support. It had been about holding things together so others didn't have to. After sending that final message to my parents, I expected a kind of emotional explosion, a confrontation, a desperate call from my mom, something. Instead, I got silence. Not the loud kind that's filled with passive-aggressive tension, the quiet kind, the final kind, the kind that feels like a door quietly closing behind you with no promise it'll ever open again. At first, it hurt. I'd always believed, naively perhaps, that no matter how dysfunctional our family could be, the ties that bound us were thicker than any disagreement. But what I came to understand is that for some people, the idea of family is only sacred as long as you're useful. Once you stop being useful, they stop being family. The thing is, I didn't tell Marcus everything, not at first. I hadn't told him just how often I'd covered for Kayla in the past. When she was 17 and totaled our parents' car after a night out, I lied and said I'd been the one driving. I took the punishment, the grounding, the lectures, because I didn't want her to ruin her chances of getting into college. When she dropped out of community college after a semester, I helped her spin it into a career pivot during family gatherings, even though I knew she'd just stopped showing up to class. I'd given her money before. Not huge sums, but enough. An overdue phone bill here, a new set of tires there, always with the vague promise of, I'll pay you back when things calm down. Things never calmed down. They only escalated. I think I started waking up to the truth the year she got married. The wedding was a nightmare. She wanted something boho chic, which translated to a very expensive Instagram fantasy on a Craigslist budget. My parents drained their savings to cover the venue. I was roped into being the unofficial wedding planner because she fired the actual planner for not vibing with her. And then, when everything predictably started falling apart, she sobbed in my arms and said, I wish Mom was more like you. You just get me. I thought it was sweet at the time. I think I even cried a little. What I didn't realize was that she didn't mean it as praise. She meant it as a job assignment. When she and Connor bought the house, I tried to be supportive. They were clearly overextending themselves, but I thought maybe they'd grow into it. They were both doing freelance work, and while it seemed risky, I figured maybe this was their chance to finally settle down and take life seriously. Instead, I watched them treat the house like an Airbnb and their lives like a travel blog. They bought furniture on credit, installed a hot tub they couldn't afford, hosted vision board parties while ignoring calls from creditors. And still, I said nothing. Because that's what I did. So when I said no this time, it wasn't just about the money. It was about everything. It was the only time in my life I had put up a boundary and kept it up, even when the people I loved tried to bulldoze through it. But that doesn't mean it was easy. One night, about a month after everything blew up, I got a text from my dad. Just 5 words. She's going to lose it. No punctuation, no context. I stared at it for a long time. I felt a strange mix of guilt, anger, and grief. Grief for the family I thought I had. Grief for the big sister role I had believed was rooted in love, not obligation. Grief for the realization that I could either keep giving and be loved, or stop giving and be exiled. I didn't reply. A week later, the house was gone. Kayla posted a long, tearful video on Instagram. We fought so hard, we tried everything, but the system is rigged. It's just not built for people like us. There were tears, dramatic pauses, soft piano music, and not one word of accountability. No mention of the sabbatical in Costa Rica. No mention of the refinanced mortgage. Just vague references to unforeseen circumstances and people who turned their backs on us. That was when I lost it. I didn't comment. I didn't reach out. But for the first time in my life, I let myself be angry. Not the bottled-up kind of anger that simmers under forced smiles, but real, righteous anger. I sat on the floor of my kitchen and sobbed. Marcus held me, and I kept saying, why isn't it enough? Why wasn't I enough? Because that's how it felt. Like my entire relationship with my family had been conditional, dependent on how much I could carry for everyone else. The days after that were strangely peaceful. Painful, yes, but also liberating. I stopped checking social media. I deleted the group chats I'd muted. I unfollowed Kayla. I focused on work. I read books. I started going for long walks again. Little by little, I started to remember who I was outside of my sister's problems. Then one day, about 3 months later, I got a letter in the mail, handwritten, no return address. It was from my mom. I don't know how we got here. I think I let my love for Kayla blind me to the ways we were asking too much of you. I'm sorry. Not just for now, but for the years you carried more than your share. I hope someday we can sit down, not as judge and defendant, but as mother and daughter. And I hope you'll forgive me for needing this long to see what was always right in front of me. I cried when I read it. Not because everything was fixed. It wasn't. Not even close. But because it was the first time someone in my family had acknowledged the truth. That maybe I wasn't the bad guy. That maybe boundaries weren't betrayal. That maybe, just maybe, I was allowed to choose myself. That letter from my mom didn't fix things, but it cracked open a door I thought had been closed forever. I didn't call her. Not right away. I carried that letter around with me for days, folded into my coat pocket like a fragile secret. I kept reading it over and over, wondering if she meant it, wondering if this was the first step toward real change or just a brief flicker of guilt. A few weeks later, I finally picked up the phone. We didn't talk about the money. We didn't talk about Kayla, at least not at first. We talked about things we used to love, about gardening, about books, about how I used to draw on the walls with crayons and say it was art. It was awkward, but gentle, careful. A dance where both of us were afraid to step too far too fast. Eventually, we did talk about Kayla. She's angry, my mom said. She feels abandoned. I felt abandoned too, I said. For years. There was silence. But not defensive silence, thoughtful silence. The kind that lets words sink in. I think it hit her finally how much weight I'd carried in the background. How many times I'd said yes when I should have said no. How much easier it had been for them to lean on me because I didn't scream or break or ask for anything in return. And how much that had cost me. Do you hate her? My mom asked. I didn't answer right away. Then I said, no. But I don't trust her anymore. And I don't think she sees me as a person. I think she sees me as a lifeline. And I can't keep being that. After that conversation, something shifted. I didn't rejoin the family group chat. I didn't offer to come over for dinner. But there was space now. Open space where we could build something new if we wanted to. Something honest. Kayla never reached out. Not once. Not even a passive-aggressive text. From what I gather, she and Connor moved into a much smaller apartment on the edge of town. She started a Patreon for her healing journey, and I heard through a cousin that she's been posting a lot of vague, spiritual-sounding content about reclaiming her narrative and the trauma of being unsupported. I don't follow her. I don't watch her videos. I do still think about her, though. About the little girl who used to braid my hair and read books to me at night. About the teenager who spiraled because no one ever taught her consequences. About the woman she became, the one who kept demanding the world bend for her, even as it snapped under the weight. Sometimes I wonder if she'll ever see herself clearly. I hope she does. Not out of bitterness, but because I think it's the only way she'll stop hurting people. I hope one day she sits with the truth long enough to realize that love doesn't mean never saying no. That support isn't the same as sacrifice. That family is not a hierarchy of who owes whom, but a circle that only works if everyone inside it gives and receives with care. As for me, I've started going to therapy again. I'm learning how to say no without guilt, how to set boundaries without shame, how to be a sister who loves fiercely but refuses to be used. It's hard, especially when you've spent your whole life being the one who smooths things over, keeps the peace, fixes everything. But I'm starting to believe that I deserve peace too. So, am I the asshole for not helping my sister save her house? Maybe to her, I always will be. Maybe in her story, I'm the villain. The sister who had money and refused. The one who abandoned her when she needed it most. But in my story, I was the one who finally said, enough. And for the first time in my life, I'm okay with that.